As Marshal of the University, it is my honor to declare open the proceedings of the 517th Convocation of the University of Chicago and to introduce the university's 13th president, Robert J. Zimmer. Please be seated.
Good afternoon and welcome. As the Marshal has just announced, today's ceremony is the 517th time that the University of Chicago has assembled for a convocation. From the time that classes began here in the fall of 1892, the university has held a convocation ceremony at the end of each quarter, allowing students to be recognized and celebrated for their achievements immediately upon completion of their studies, and to do so through formal exercises just as we do today. The primary purpose of convocation is, of course, to award degrees. But these occasions satisfy other important objectives as well. At convocation number 1, on January 2nd, 1893, the university's first president, William Rainey Harper, set out goals for these ceremonies, goals which 120 years later we continue to observe. Harper believed these occasions of high ceremony to be a necessary and nourishing part of the life of a university, and intended to have them literally call together a cause to assemble all parts of the university community. In Harper's words, convocations are meant to bind together into a unity the many complex and diverging forms of activity which constitute our university's life and work. Today's ceremony, then, is also about reflecting upon the whole of what we do across the many libraries, laboratories, and classrooms that make up our campus. And in addition, it affords us all a moment to reflect upon the accomplishments of our past and the opportunities of our future, individually, collectively, and institutionally. I confer the degrees awarded this afternoon by the authority delegated to me by the university's Board of Trustees, represented today by Trustee Mary Lugorno, and I do so on behalf of the faculty of the University of Chicago that has the responsibility for the educational programs recently completed. I welcome you again to the 517th Convocation, a time-honored ritual that recognizes achievements of which we can all be proud.
As Provost of the University of Chicago, it is my privilege to introduce David Wellbery, the LeRoy T. and Margaret Deffenbaugh Carlson University Professor and Chair of the Department of Germanic Studies, who will deliver today's convocation address. There are few academics who can guarantee a premier ranking for a department, but Professor Wellbery is one of them. He combines deep expertise and a wide-ranging intellect with distinguished leadership and generosity of spirit. Professor Wellbery's monographs in German literary history are considered classics in the field. These include Lessing's La Accolone, Semiotics and Aesthetics in the Age of Reason, and The Specular Moment, Goethe's early lyric and the beginnings of Romanticism, which join dozens of articles and collections on Dr. Wellbery's resume. Professor Wellbery is the editor-in-chief of the monumental New History of German Literature, a collection of some 200 original essays by leading scholars and critics, and leads the University of Chicago Center for Interdisciplinary Research on German Literature and Culture. The center initiates and supports international research collaborations through on-campus academic and cultural events, as well as international exchange programs for faculty and students. Before joining our faculty in 2001, Professor Wellbery taught at Stanford and Johns Hopkins. He is an elected member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the German Academy of Poetry, and the German Academy of Sciences. He has been awarded the prestigious Humboldt Research Prize and the Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm Prize, both in recognition of his career contributions to literary studies. The title of his talk today is Faust, Despair, and the Life of Learning. David.
President Zimmer, Provost Rosenbaum, trustees, deans, and members of the faculty, graduates, family, and friends, it is a truly great honor for me to address you today. My academic work bears on the study of literature and thought, with special emphasis on the German tradition. Today I want to talk to you about what is unquestionably the greatest work to have emerged from that tradition, the two-part tragedy Faust by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. In 1910, the Hispanic-American philosopher George Santayana wrote that Goethe's Faust is one of the three major philosophical poems in European literary history. While Lucretius' De Rerum Natura unfolds the ancient vision of atomism, and Dante's Divine Comedy, the Christian vision of the soul's ascent toward God, Goethe's Faust gives us the most complete poetic account of human life as historical self-fashioning. So that you can orient yourself historically, I will simply mention that Goethe worked on his Faust poem off and on for some 60 years, starting around 1773, when he was 24 years old. The first lesson Faust offers us then might be formulated this way: keep at it. Genuine masterpieces usually take a lifetime. The completed part one of the poem, which will be at the center of my talk, appeared in 1808. The Holy Roman Empire, which had organized political life in Central Europe for more than 1,000 years, had just come to a crashing end. Goethe was able to witness the decisive battle, Napoleon's defeat of the Prussians at the Battle of Jena, from his upstairs window. The reason I believe Faust makes an appropriate topic for a convocation address is that it raises a question central for us as an academic community. The University of Chicago is a community that finds its meaning, that has its idea, with a capital I, in the search for truth. It's not that we are a community, one incidental activity of which is the search for truth, but rather that the search for truth is what binds us together, gives us our orientation in the world. It is a source of pride throughout the university, among students, faculty, and administrators, that we cleave to this idea in a uniquely fierce way. Let me try to bring out what I am calling the idea of our community with a thought experiment invented by the great writer of the German Enlightenment, Gotthold Ephraim Lessing. Maybe some of you have come across the statue of Lessing while biking through Washington Park. He deserves that statue and deserves to be remembered at this university. Lessing was the greatest theologian, dramatist, and critic of his day. His play, Nathan the Wise, is perhaps the most profound exploration of the notion of religious tolerance in world literature. In the thought experiment I want to call to your attention, Lessing writes, Suppose that God came to you and held out his two hands and said, in this hand, my right one, is the truth, and in this hand, my left, is the unending search for truth, a search, however, that will for all eternity include an element of error. Which would you choose? Without hesitation, Lessing answers, in all humility, I would take his left hand and say, Father, give me this, pure truth is for you alone. The salutary effect of thought experiments is that they bring to the bright light of self-awareness important aspects of the commitments and values we hold. They show us something about how our concepts work, and therefore something about ourselves. We intuitively understand Lessing's choice of the left hand. That choice makes salient the fact that the very notion of truth loses its meaning if it is not tied to human endeavor. Part of what it means to be human is to be a truth searcher. To give up that search would be to give up an essential aspect of our identity. But Lessing's exercise in self-reflection also tells us that the results of our inquiry will never be perfect, and that in taking on the quest for truth, we are accepting consequences of such fallibility. That's the way Lessing saw it in 1777. The earliest drafts for Goethe's Faust were sketched about 4 years before Lessing published his thought experiment, but I want to take 1808, as mentioned above, the year that Faust Part 1 was published, as my point of reference here, and this for a particular reason. For this is exactly the time when Wilhelm von Humboldt, the Prussian diplomat and scholar, was preparing his thoughts on how to institute a modern university. 2 years later, he would complete the memorandum that served as the blueprint for the founding of the University of Berlin. You probably think I'm throwing a lot of very forgettable dates at you, but the story I'm unfolding is of pressing relevance to us as we are gathered here today. To put the matter in a nutshell, Humboldt's model of an independent research university in which students are educated to think freely and critically provided the paradigm according to which the University of Chicago shaped itself during its formative years. In the very first convocation address held at this university 120 years ago, the historian Hermann Eduard von Holst vigorously advocated Humboldt's ideal, and in his 500th convocation address, delivered just 4 years ago, President Zimmer reaffirmed the university's commitment to the Humboldtian concept of critical inquiry as the aim of higher education. The immediate connection between this story and my topic today lies in the fact that Humboldt and Goethe were close friends. They were in regular correspondence. Humboldt was a great admirer of Goethe's, and Goethe shared with Humboldt his poetic and scientific manuscripts before they were published. Goethe, in addition to being a poet and public official, was a scientist of incomparable range and productivity. I can only mention here his discovery of the intermaxillary bone in the human being, his pioneering work on the morphology of plants, and his controversial theory of colors. Humboldt, too, was a distinguished scholar, especially known for his theoretical work in linguistics. But Goethe's and Humboldt's achievements were intertwined. Indeed, I am convinced that Humboldt's concept of the inner form of language is deeply imbued with Goethe's morphological theory. On the other hand, one of the privileges of Humboldt's friendship with Goethe, as we know from their correspondence, was that he was able to follow Goethe's progress on Faust firsthand. In fact, Humboldt was probably the critic whom Goethe most respected and whose opinions, therefore, he allowed to affect the course of his various scientific and poetic projects. This gives you an idea of the intellectual ferment out of which both Goethe's Faust and Humboldt's concept of the independent research university emerged. One of the topics of my research at Chicago has been to trace out these lines of influence and to excavate the conceptual foundations of such cooperative endeavors. Given the context I have sketched here, it might seem something of a mystery that Goethe begins his Faust tragedy by having his hero, the most learned scholar of his day, soundly reject university study. Here are the opening lines of Goethe's play in my own translation. Faust, opening monologue. So now I've studied philosophy, the legal art, medicine too, and damn it, even theology, crammed for sweaty hours on end. Yet here I am, a wretched fool, no wiser than at the start, got a master's now, a doctorate too, And for the past 10 years, I've led my students around their empty heads and dragged them by the nose. For what? So-called knowledge is a joke. It all just tears my heart apart. The voice that comes to expression in these lines is a voice of despair at learning. And it is out of this despair that the protagonist, Faust, will make his infamous pact with the devil. The question I want to ask is, what is the ground of this Faustian despair, and what is its relationship to the life of learning? The first point I want to make is that we can hear in Faust's lament the deep dissatisfaction with the inherited order of the university at the time Goethe was writing the poem. Indeed, when Faust says that he studied philosophy, law, medicine, and theology, he is referring to the four divisions of the European university that emerged out of late medieval Europe. The philosophical faculty was charged with instruction in the so-called propedeutic subjects of grammar, logic, rhetoric. Law and medicine were the two secular professions for which university preparation was useful, and theology, the queen of the sciences, was regarded as supreme. This was essentially the way things looked when Goethe went to Leipzig to study law in 1769. And this was the structure keyed to the transmission of authoritative knowledge and to the preparation of students for specific secular or church-affiliated offices that Humboldt's conception of 1810 would overthrow. Faust's despair then bespeaks the crying need for the university reform that would soon follow. But there is another issue that Faust's monologue brings to expression. By highlighting the despair of his protagonist, Goethe brings out the fact that a special kind of despair is intrinsic to the search for knowledge. We may say that this form of despair emerges at moments of epistemological crisis. Such moments come about when not just this or that piece of presumed knowledge is called into question, but rather when the very schemata that organize our knowing are shaken. Not only do such schemata provide us with the prescriptive frames within which our interpretations are articulated, they are also constitutive of who we are as knowledge bearers. This is an insight that was first brought to awareness by Goethe and his philosophical contemporaries, Herder and Hegel. The basic thought is that human beings derive their sense of identity from their self-interpretations, that self-conceptions are very much dependent on sustaining structures of meaning. When our schemata are shaken, we are shaken with them. For this reason, Hegel called the process of knowledge change the path of despair. And for this reason, Goethe opens his play with a Faust whose heart is torn apart by the fact that the schemata within which he had found his self-conception have lost all force of conviction. If we now loop back from Goethe's dramatization of epistemological crisis and despair in Faust to the works of Goethe's contemporaries I mentioned above, then we see something quite important, although seldom acknowledged. We see that Lessing's vision of the search for truth and Humboldt's vision of a university of free and open inquiry render epistemological crisis unavoidable. They are programs for the experience of a despair that can be very far-reaching indeed. This has bearing on our community, which is constituted and constantly reconstitutes itself as a community in search of truth. Let me put the matter this way. As we honor today the completion of your course of study, it is my fervent hope that in looking back on your time at the University of Chicago, you will all recall moments of epistemological crisis, that you will all have felt a tinge of Faust's despair. If your schemata of self-interpretation have not been called into question, then something has gone wrong. And I say this not as a neutral observer, but as someone who, during the 12 years he has spent at this institution, has seen some of his most deep-seated conceptions called into question. It is, if you think about it, a strange sort of institution that functions by creating the conditions for epistemological crisis among its participants. Perhaps the university is not the only institution of this sort. Perhaps modernity has produced several of them. The figure of Faust in Goethe's poem is often taken by interpreters to embody essential features of the modern world, and this is why the poem, with its crises, can tell us something about our own lives. But Faust is a romantic hero, and romantic heroes characteristically go it alone. That's what makes their despair so all-consuming. We, on the other hand, are not romantic heroes because we have community. And it is, in my view, the communal nature of our enterprise that enables us to meet the challenge of Faustian despair. Ask yourself how an epistemological crisis might be resolved. A plausible answer, one that is elaborated in Goethe's and Hegel's thought, is that resolution occurs through the construction of a narrative that enables the person in the grip of that crisis to grasp how she could have held those beliefs that have now been shaken. The earlier framework is brought into a more encompassing understanding where it is self-consciously attended to as a stage that has been overcome. My sense of the matter is that this is the work of community. Part of the tragedy of Faust in Goethe's poem is that he must suffer through his epistemological crisis alone. Indeed, his crucial mistake may be that he conceives the entire process of inquiry as solely his. But Goethe's and Humboldt's experience taught them that knowledge is a communal enterprise, and that it is the epistemological community that weaves and reweaves the narrative that brings epistemological crises to their resolution. A component of that resolution is the awareness that knowledge structures are fragile and that the new forms of understanding we have achieved will themselves be called into question. Such consciousness is what it feels like to take God's left hand. My wish for you today is for a little despair and for lots of community. Congratulations on your academic achievements.
As we begin the presentation of degrees, may I call your attention to the award of honors listed in the convocation program, as well as the names of candidates receiving degrees today in absentia. At this time, in the favoring presence of the congregation here assembled, the deans of several faculties or their appointed representatives will present the candidates for academic degrees to the president of the university. The dean of the college will now present candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science in programs in the college.
Mr. President, these students have completed the prescribed program of undergraduate studies. On behalf of the faculty of the college, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science and welcome you to the Fellowship of Educated Men and Women.
Seth A. Beecher, Stephanie Marie Berda, Alexandra Catherine Carlson, Christina Chan, Shofan Chen, Noe Garza, Sushin Sri Goranjan, Mackenzie Victoria Halbert, Paul Gordon Hawkins Jr., Matthew Charles Henson, Bryant Joachim Jackson Green, Jessica Cordell Jarvinen, Yevin Jung, Min Jae Jo, James Lee Jones. Ashley Elise Jordan, Ibrahim Kamal, Meltem Nashkaso, Abraham Joshua Kwan, Katarina Luis Lechas Pereira Oberlander, Daniel June Lee, James Liner, Avery Kent Shillington Menardi, Jacqueline McCarthy, Nathan James McConnell, Andy Lin Nyan, Felicia Pan, Erica Ann Rist, Jillian Karen Schrader, Yangwan Shi, Navti Singh, Adele Gracio Stichel, Rafael David Suarez, Di Sun, Jennifer Ray Sung, Jenny C. Tan, Verdiana Wagner, Jeffrey Joseph Weinstein, Natasha Magdalena Wands, Miles Connor Whithouse, Nathan Neal Worcester.
The Dean of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies will now present a candidate for the degree of Master of Liberal Arts in programs in the Graham School.
Mr. President, this student has completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. I now have the honor to present her as a candidate for the degree of Master of Liberal Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the liberal arts, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Liberal Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Karen Kenny.
The Dean of the Division of the Biological Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine.
Mr. President, this student has completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine, and the special program approved by his department. I now have the honor to present him as a candidate for the degree of Master of Science.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the biological sciences, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Science, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Ali Aria Razmaria.
Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Raymond William Bordeaux. Sebastian Marius Feiker. Audrey Susan Garnett. Stephanie Jo Klanotich. Amelia Mary Randich. Kaylee Ann Swaggart.
The Dean of the Division of the Humanities will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Humanities.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Humanities and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the humanities, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Catherine Laurel Agnew. Neil Backus. Nina Laurie Lipman. Alexandria Michelle Schultz. Heather Jean Stankey. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Humanities, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Eric James Brinkman. Francisco Castello Triejos. Mary Jan Drivestein. Camelia Liliana Nakagarawa. Ferial E. Salem. George Tiberio Shepos.
The Dean of the Division of the Physical Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Physical Sciences, as well as a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy jointly with the Division of Biological Sciences.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Science.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the physical sciences, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Science, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Jonathan Scott Brady. Yue Feng. Elizabeth Lucia Gray. Lihua Li. Shia Cheng. Daniel Sullivan. Peter H. Thorson. Hunter Boxa Wiebert. Cheng Ziwang. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Attila Soner Balkir. Nainchi Bain. Jaime Robert Cabrera Pardo. Cheng Yang Ji Wang. Hei Keung Kim. Heng Li Wu. Davis Blake Morhavec. Jonathan Michael Logan. Satimi Shirichi. Nicole Ann Tuttle. Mr. President, the student I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences and the faculty of the Division of the Biological Sciences. I have the honor to present him as a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Ernesto Vargas Lopez.
The Dean of the Division of the Social Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Social Sciences.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Social Sciences and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the social sciences, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Christopher Michael Bennett. Robin Francine Carney. Marion Gable. Gregory Christian Gabrielas. Jenna Marie Henderson. Jade Danielle Hill. Brittany Anna Louise Hutton. Kieran Matthew Kelly. Harini Kumar. Melanie Lacan. Jennifer Landa. Jeremy Levine. Monica Elena Rivera Bayón. Nora Helen Rubenstone. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Social Sciences, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
John Felipe Acevedo. Christina Elizabeth Coughlin. Adrian Lori Falcon. Diana Sue Kim. Sarah Luna. Shaul Mittelpunkt. Tracy Linnea Parker. Liping Wang.
The Dean of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Business Administration and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the University of Chicago Booth School of Business.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of professional studies prescribed by the faculty of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Business Administration.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Business Administration, and I express the hope that your work will further wise choices in the allocation of economic resources for the benefit of all people.
Imran Ahmad. Mark Peter Anderson. Gabriel Michael Anderson. Vamsi Krishna Anavajula. Andrew Arnold. Christopher Robert Babel. Abraham S.H. Balin. Jonathan Scott Baker. Sarah Bale. Gabriel Isaac Bauer. David Walter Borkowski. Brandon Lee Breeting. Michael Ryan Brown. Manuel Verdeze. Yvette L. Butler. Michael Allen Cates. James Arthur Cirilli. Christopher Lee Clark. Tyler David Cockle. Stephen Vincent Colelli. Anthony Paul Danielak IV. Shenning DeForest. Nihal Desai. Supreet Dillon. Ashley Renee Evans. Winan Fay. Iskra Gorgieva. Ursula Simona Golubowska. Ryan Edward Graff. Pradeep Reddy Gumi. Ajitesh Gupta. Waqar Habib. Allison Hannon. Sarah Heim. Thomas Houchins. Vladimir Ignatov. Kevin Robert Jackson. Rahul S. Jadav. Adam Joseph Jania. Adam Matthew Janowski. Elliot Terrell Johnson. Tao Jiang. Elliot Terrell Johnson. Arun Kakani. Puneet Gupta Kant. Garima Kapadia. Alexander James Kennedy. Boris Holyovsky. Changyup Kim. Lavanya Kumara Jahachandran. John Thomas Lavin. Kevin Jongyang Lee. Gregory Michael Lim. Yifeng Lin. Yun Ling. Raphael Thomas Manino. Hassan Mansour. Scott Patrick McIntosh. Christopher Andrew Murley. Chad R. Miles. Anne Elizabeth Nickel. Eric Carlos Onyango. Sandeep Paladagu. Ilwoo Park. Benjamin Barr Parker. Matthew Michael Parsons. Brian A. Payne. Scott Peach. Maria Michelle Podenko. Keith Richard Peterson. Shivam Harish Podar. Shasin Prabhat. Jeffrey Allen Rabo. Roshan Rahman. Avahe Rappaport. Leslie Jane Raskin. Chandra Muli Ravipati. David Wilson Roy. Kara Lynn Schaller. Jonathan Frederick Schwan. Matthew Garrett Shehorn. Natasha Shore. Topeka Shukla. Robert Glenn Silver. Chakradar Deo Singh. Ritesh Singhal. Mukesh Kumar Srivastava. Wei Sun. Robert William Taylor. Nicholas John Tenakides. Joseph Michael Tess. Adam Tishok. Orlando Tregear. Sandhya Tulasiram. Frank Joseph Vigilante. Razvan M. Wojcescu. Bernard von Gazicki. Dennis Dion Wang. Anthony Cecil White. Casey Michael Winters. Venkata Sivaram Yadanapudi. Tian Yao Yu. Timothy Yuckman. Shu Zhang.
Mr. President, the students I now present have attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and have prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Catherine Farmer Lee. Srihari Santosh. Andreas Staisiunas.
The Dean of the Divinity School will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Divinity School.
Mr. President, these students have completed a program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Divinity School for foundational education in the academic study of religion. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in divinity, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advanced knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Kristen Nicole Pomikala. Andrew Michael Solom. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research in the academic study of religion. On behalf of the faculty of the Divinity School, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Elizabeth Sweeney Block. Kelly Lee Brotzman. Rana Choi.
The Deputy Dean of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Public Policy and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Harris School.
Mr. President, this student has completed the course of professional study prescribed by the faculty of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies. I now have the honor to present her as a candidate for the degree of Master of Public Policy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Public Policy, and I express the hope that your work will guide public policy toward the enhancement of the common good.
So Young Park. Mr. President, the students I now present have attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and have prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Elizabeth Ann Corvat. Alejandro Ome Velasquez.
The Dean of Students of the School of Social Service Administration will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the School of Social Service Administration.
Mr. President, this student has completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the School of Social Service Administration. I now have the honor to present her as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your work will promote the welfare of individuals and the achievement of a socially just society.
Judith Louise Wyrock. Mr. President, these students have attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and have prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the School of Social Service Administration, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Adam Michael Averson. Rebecca Feinstein Winitzer. Amy Rebecca Proger.
Please stand for the singing of the university's alma mater. Please be seated.
This is a special day for all of you upon whom I have just conferred a degree, and it is likewise a special day for the family members and friends who may be here to join you. It marks the completion of your study, or at least one phase of that study, a path that I trust has been challenging. I hope you are enjoying this moment of celebration and perhaps moment of reflection that this convocation affords. You are now all graduates of the University of Chicago. Congratulations. Because of your achievements that we celebrate today with your family and friends, each of you will always be connected to the University of Chicago, a connection that I hope that you and we will foster together for many years. The University of Chicago is an institution driven from its inception by an idea that one could create and continuously renew a university focused on rigorous, intense inquiry and analysis. The university, through its work every day, expresses the view that clarity derives from the clash of ideas, the challenge of assumptions, and the willingness to accept answers only when they meet the tests of argument. We seek understanding that is complex, expandable, and fluid, rather than simple and rigid. An understanding that reflects analysis rather than ideology, that accepts complexity over the comfort of simplicity, that seeks to delineate both the power and the limitations of argument, and an understanding that is always ready to incorporate new data which can emerge and which in fact must be sought. We believe that the best education, the most empowering education, and the most powerful learning take place in the environment of constant challenge that is implicit in this culture of rigorous inquiry, and that this culture is responsible for producing ideas of power and importance to humankind. This focus on rigorous inquiry has defined the University of Chicago, its research at all levels since its beginning, as we heard from Professor Wellbery, and it continues to do so today. The university and its culture are renewed every day by the work of its faculty, students, and staff. And while it is natural to focus on your own achievements and what they mean for your future, you can also take great satisfaction in your contribution to the ongoing renewal of your university, the University of Chicago. I know that as graduates of this university in the coming years, you will be called upon to act, to speak, and to lead. And like so many University of Chicago graduates who have come before you, you will approach this challenge of leadership empowered by your University of Chicago education. The power of analysis and ideas that you have experienced here and that are now your own will serve you wherever your path takes you and whatever challenges you confront. Each of you who received a degree today has received help and support from parents, family, spouses, partners, children, friends, mentors, or university faculty and staff. And while it is your achievements that we mark today, all of these supporters can rightly take great pride in your accomplishment. And so to all degree recipients, please accept my congratulations for all you have achieved. I wish you all good fortune and happiness in the years ahead. Enjoy your coming adventures wherever they may take you. Congratulations.
This now concludes the 517th Convocation of the University of Chicago. Crescat scientia vita escalator. Let knowledge grow from more to more, and so be human life enriched.